Hello and welcome to Unworthy History. Here on this channel we try to bring you actual history. Now today I'm going to bring you more actual history from this book right here, Indian Depredations in Texas by J.W. Wilbarger, published all the way back in 1889. And today I'm going to read the story of a woman by the name of Margaret McClellan. She lived in Williamson County, and this took place back around 1835. Margaret McClellan was a native of the state of Florida. Her parents immigrated to Texas in the year 1835 and settled in Robertson's Colony, from whence they afterwards moved to what is now Williamson County. There were no other settlers in the new country to which they moved, the nearest settlement being 75 miles distant. The family consisted of Mr. McClellan, wife, two small boys, and an infant. On their arrival at the place of destination, and before they had unloaded their wagon, they discovered that they were out of meat. Mr. McClellan took his gun and went into the woods for the purpose of hunting some game, leaving his wife to keep camp. McClellan, being unacquainted with the country, lost his way, and did not reach his camp until nearly dark, when he discovered his wife and children were gone. During his absence, the Indians had attacked his camp and captured his entire family. The first act of barbarism committed by the Indians was to strip the entire family of their clothing and then tie them fast. They next proceeded to plunder the wagon. In unloading the wagon, they burst open a large trunk in which they found a looking glass. This so engaged their attention that they entirely forgot the prisoners. This was a new invention to them, and they began viewing themselves alternately, yelling and laughing. Mrs. McClellan took advantage of this and untied herself and the children. She took her infant in her arms and motioned to her little boy to follow. She crawled off in the brush out of view of the enemy, who were still enjoying themselves over the looking-glass. She moved off to the San Gabriel bottom, and there found a sheltering rock, forming a kind of cave. In this she concealed herself and her two children. When dark came and the Indians could no longer see themselves in the glass, they turned toward the spot where they had left their prisoners and found that they had gone. They made a thorough search for them, but the darkness prevented their being found. Mrs. McClellan says they came so close to her once that she could have spit on them. She was in dreadful suspense, fearing her infant would cry out and thereby reveal their place of concealment. The Indians, failing to find the objects of their search, departed for other fields. Soon after they left, McClellan came back to camp, and what must have been his feelings to find his wife and children were gone, and his wagon robbed. He naturally enough supposed that his family had been taken off by the Indians and perhaps had been murdered. So he took his little son, who had accompanied him when he started hunting, and set out towards the settlements, a distance of 75 miles. Mrs. McClellan and the two children remained in her hiding place all night. In being in the fall of the year, and the Indians having stripped them of their clothing, they suffered considerably from the cold. The next morning she ventured forth and went back to her desolate camp. There she found a few rags of clothing, which she endeavored to hide the nakedness of herself and her children, but could do but little in that direction. She also found a little shattered corn in the dust around the wagon. She ate a portion of this and gave the remainder to her children. This poor woman remained in this horrible condition for several days, or until her husband had returned from the settlements with a company which he had raised for the purpose of pursuing the enemy and recapturing his family if they were still alive. When the company approached the camp, Mrs. McClellan was scratching about in the dust to see if she could find any more corn. When she discovered them, she supposed that they were Indians and ran off. The men immediately gave chase, not knowing who she was, and they had to run her down before they caught her. The poor woman had become almost wild. She and her children were terribly emaciated. They were very much reduced in flesh for the want of food, insomuch that they appeared almost like living skeletons. It is said that the meeting between Mr. McClellan and his wife was quite an affecting scene. This lady was now gone the way of all creation, and rests where no Indian can ever again trouble her calm repose. So that was the end of this story right here. This is a story that goes back all the way to 1835. These stories in this book really span quite a few number of years. So if you want to see more episodes like this, then be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Unworthy History.